So what's the strategy going into now the rubber match? Because you had him hurt in the second fight again.
I did. Honestly, Max, I had to go back and watch a lot of boxing in preparation for this one because of those guys that throw those lead left body hooks. You don't see that very much in mixed martial arts. So I had to go to boxing and watch guys that throw it and watch how fighters were countering it. And I've seen on a number of occasions, there are a lot of shots that you can throw, if timed correctly, that can really do damage to your opponent and discourage him from throwing those strikes. I know for a fact that he's going to try to go back to the body because that's where he found his most success. Everything else I was able to slip off and counter. So I've watched a ton of boxing in the build-up to this fight and the preparation because there are some strikes that I think I can land that can really discourage him from throwing that shot.
Yeah, when the taller guy digs to the body, he's open for something. Yep.
Yeah, you know what it is, Max, too. You know exactly what that shot is.
DC, obviously, you talk about slipping punches. You're talking about body shots. You're talking about striking. But obviously, you're an elite wrestler. Why hasn't that been a strategy that you've talked much about when going up against a guy like him?
Initially in the first fight, I wanted to wrestle him a little bit, but then I started finding success on the feet, so I kind of stayed the course. But the knockout came from a wrestling position. He came into the clinch, and he had an underhook. When I re-digged the underhook, I threw the right hand over the top because I saw in the fight preparation that he comes out of the clinch with his hands very low. So that landed. In the second fight, Stephen A., I was 8.5 months out of back surgery. So wrestling wasn't really an option going into that fight. Now, I'm almost 2 years out of back surgery. I've done a lot of wrestling in preparation for this one, so you'll see much more of that in the octagon on Saturday. But you're right. I can win this fight in the stand-up. But the easiest path to victory for me is to go and take him down because when I did, I held him down for 3.5 minutes in the first round.
Daniel, you've obviously had a long, illustrious career. I've known you a long time. This is potentially, according to you, your last fight ever. What is going through your mind, and can anything change that? Everybody keeps asking, well, Uncle Dana's going to pull up to your house with the Brinks truck to fight John Jones again and all this other stuff. But I always tell people, you're the best in the world until you're not. And at some point, it's going to be difficult to compete with these guys. I'm comfortable. I've got a lot of things outside of fighting that are going to take a huge part of my life as I retire. And I'm happy. I'm happy with all that I've done. To become a 2-time UFC heavyweight champion, have been a UFC light heavyweight champion twice, I'm content, and I'm ready for the next chapter of my life. So I'm looking at Stipe Miocic as the last time I walk into the octagon, and I'm happy about it. I want what George St. Pierre got, to walk away as the champion. Most people don't get that.
Daniel, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Stipe not long ago on this show earlier today. And you're an analyst and have a sense of the history of the sport. It seems to me that the light heavyweight championship, the light heavyweight division was always the glamour division, and the heavyweights were more of an afterthought, frequently coming down to light heavyweight for the big money fights. This is a rubber match. You're saying the last fight of your career, two great fighters, you split fights. This is among the biggest fights in heavyweight history. Where do you think this ranks, this rubber match, in the history of the UFC heavyweight division?
It ranks right up there. There have been a few trilogies in the UFC before. And Cain Velasquez fought Junior Dos Santos 3 times for the heavyweight championship. And Cain dominated in those final 2 fights. But to have the fights that Stipe and I have had and the way that the fights have played out. In the first fight, Stipe was doing very well early, and I knocked him out. In the second fight, I was the one that was leading the fight. I was the one that was winning all facets of the fight, and he beat me. So 2 finishes going into a third fight. This fight determines the greatest heavyweight the UFC has ever seen. And it keeps me at the table. They talk about a seat at the table with the greats. By becoming a 2-time heavyweight champion, I am ensured to always sit at that table with the guys like George St. Pierre and John Jones and Anderson Silva and Randy Couture. I will never be able to be removed from that once I become the heavyweight champion again.
DC, one of the things that I want to step away from inside the octagon just for a second, because, I mean, I'm looking at the NBA right now with all that's going on with this coronavirus pandemic and the way that the NBA has handled things. No positive tests. You got the bubble going on in Atlanta. They've been phenomenal. But I couldn't help but give the UFC and specifically Dana White so much props because obviously he was pushing for this sport to come on, for this sport to get back in action. And then when you guys called that fight, I thought y'all did such a phenomenal job calling the fight and giving us a sense of what it was like to be there, despite the absence of a crowd, that it kind of made it easier, or dare I say, put pressure on some of the other leagues to get themselves back going as well. I want to know what your thoughts are about the sport and how you guys have handled things specifically since the pandemic has taken hold.
Oh, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to see the UFC try to lead the sports world in getting back to work. And you know, like you said, Stephen A., we were able to let the fans watch and the people at home watch and see that without the fans, if you are entertaining enough and you can do things around the game to make it visually good to watch, it can work. And I'm enjoying the NBA bubble more than anything right now with the virtual fans and the crowd noise. Everything has kind of just built. And I think it started with that fight back in Jacksonville when it was just me, Joe Rogan, and John Anik watching Justin Gaethje put on the performance of a lifetime to beat Tony Ferguson. I'm happy to be a part of this company. And it took courage because everybody was afraid initially. But Dana White said, we're getting back to work. He did that. And now you see the sports world coming back. And we're getting to at least a little bit of normalcy in terms of having live sports to watch and things to look forward to.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.